The woman collapsed against the doorframe of the saloon, her swollen belly pressing against the dusty calico dress that had seen better days 3 states ago, and every eye in Leadville, Colorado, turned to watch her struggle for breath in the thin mountain air of October 1878. She had walked 17 miles that day, each step a negotiation between her body's demands and her will's insistence. The baby inside her kicked hard, as if protesting the journey, as if asking why they kept moving when all she wanted was to stop. But stopping meant dying, and dying meant the baby died too, and that was something Amelia Harper could not allow, not after everything. The saloon was the only building with light spilling from its windows at this hour, and though she knew what kind of welcome a pregnant woman alone might receive in such a place, she also knew she had no other choice. Her feet had carried her as far as they could. The thin air at 10,000 feet made every breath a labor, and the baby seemed to sense her exhaustion, settling low and heavy in a way that made her wonder if 7 months was all the time she had left. She pushed through the door. The piano music stopped first, then the conversation, then even the clink of glasses against wood. 50 men turned to stare at her, their faces ranging from curious to hostile to something worse. Amelia felt their eyes on her belly, on her bare ring finger, on the dirt caking her boots and the tear in her sleeve where a branch had caught her 2 days back. "We do not serve women," the bartender said, his voice flat and final. "I am not asking for a drink." Her voice came out stronger than she felt, which was something. "I need a room, just for tonight. I can pay." She reached into her pocket where $3 silver remained from the money she had taken when she fled, $3 between her and complete destitution. "This is not that kind of establishment," the bartender said, and several men laughed. "I just need somewhere to sleep, please." The word cost her something. Pride, maybe, or the last shred of dignity she had carried from St. Louis. The baby. "Should have thought of that before you spread your legs," someone called out, and more men laughed. The room tilted. Amelia grabbed for the nearest table, but her hand found only air, and she felt herself falling. The floor rushed up to meet her, and she thought, this is it, this is how it ends. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. She looked up into a face that was all hard angles and sun-weathered skin. Dark eyes that held something she had not seen in so long she had almost forgotten what kindness looked like. The man who held her was tall, taller than anyone she had ever known, with shoulders that seemed built to carry weight and hands that, despite their size, held her with unexpected gentleness. "Get out," he said, not to her but to the room. "Now hold on, Samuel," the bartender started. "I said get out." The cowboy's voice did not rise, but something in it made the air change. "All of you. Now." "This is my establishment," the bartender protested. "You cannot just I can and I am, out." Samuel Hayes set Amelia carefully in the nearest chair and turned to face the room. He was not wearing a gun, she noticed, which was unusual for this place and time. Most men in Leadville went armed, the mining camps and gambling halls making the town as dangerous as it was prosperous. But this man did not need a weapon. He simply stood there, taking up space, his presence filling the saloon like a physical force. The men looked at each other, weighing their options. Samuel Hayes was known in Leadville, known in all the mining camps from here to Denver. He had come to Colorado 3 years ago and made a name for himself as the kind of man you did not cross. Not because he was quick with a gun or free with his fists, but because he had a way of making things happen through sheer force of will. "Samuel, be reasonable," someone tried. "I am being reasonable. You have 30 seconds to clear this room before I start clearing it myself." Men began moving toward the door. First one, then another, then a rush as they realized he meant what he said. The bartender threw up his hands in disgust, but joined the exodus. Within a minute, the saloon was empty except for Amelia and the cowboy who had emptied it. Samuel turned back to her, his expression softening. "Are you hurt?" "I do not think so." She put a hand on her belly, feeling for the baby's movement. There a small flutter, a reminder that life continued despite everything. "Thank you. You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did." He pulled up a chair and sat facing her, close enough to catch her if she fainted again but far enough to give her space. "When did you last eat?" The question caught her off guard. She tried to remember. "Yesterday, the day before. I had some jerky this morning." His jaw tightened. "Wait here." He disappeared through a door behind the bar and returned minutes later with bread, cheese, and dried apples. He set them in front of her along with a glass of water. "Eat slowly. Your stomach will not thank you if you rush it." Amelia wanted to fall on the food like a starving animal, but she forced herself to take small bites to chew carefully. The bread was fresh, probably from that morning, and tasted like heaven. The cheese was sharp and creamy, and the apples were sweet enough to make her eyes water. Samuel watched her eat without speaking, his expression unreadable. When she had finished half the bread and most of the cheese, he said, "Where are you heading?" "I do not know." The truth felt like defeat. "Anywhere but where I was." He nodded as if this made perfect sense. "And the baby's father dead." Another truth, though not in the way he likely assumed. Thomas was dead to her, had been dead from the moment he raised his fist, from the moment he made it clear that the vows he spoke were just words with no meaning behind them. "I have no one. You have someone now." Samuel stood and held out his hand. "Come on. There are rooms upstairs. You can stay as long as you need." "I cannot pay much," she admitted. "Just $3. Keep your money. You will need it more than I do." Amelia let him help her to her feet. Her body ached in places she had not known existed, and the baby pressed down so hard she thought her legs might buckle. But Samuel's hand was steady under her elbow, guiding her toward the stairs at the back of the saloon. The stairs were steep and narrow, and by the time they reached the top, Amelia was breathing hard. Samuel led her down a hallway to a door at the end and pushed it open to reveal a small room with a bed, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the main street of Leadville. "It is not much," he said, "but the bed is clean and the door has a lock. It is perfect." Amelia moved to the bed and sat down carefully. The mattress was softer than the ground she had been sleeping on, softer than anything she remembered. "Why are you helping me?" Samuel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low. "My sister was in your situation once, pregnant, alone, desperate. She walked into a town not much different from this one looking for help. She did not find it. They found her body 3 days later in a ravine outside of town. She was 19 years old. "I am sorry," Amelia whispered. "So am I. Every day." He moved to the door. "Rest. I will bring you more food in the morning. If you need anything during the night, my room is 2 doors down on the left. Do not hesitate. Wait." She did not know what she wanted to say, only that she could not let him leave without saying something. "What is your name?" "Your full name." "Samuel Hayes. Most people call me Sam." "I am Amelia Harper." "Thank you, Sam, for everything." He nodded and left, closing the door softly behind him. Amelia sat on the bed for a long time, her hand on her belly, feeling the baby move. She had been running for 6 weeks, ever since the night Thomas came home drunk and angry, and she knew that if she stayed, he would kill her and their unborn child. She had taken what money she could find and slipped out before dawn, boarding a train west with no destination in mind beyond a way. She had traveled through Kansas and into Colorado, watching her money dwindle as the baby grew. She had sold her wedding ring in a small town whose name she could not remember, had traded her good shoes for a ride in a wagon heading toward the mountains. She had walked when she could not ride, slept under stars when she could not afford a room, and kept moving because stopping meant Thomas might catch up. But now, in this small room above a saloon in Leadville, Colorado, with a stranger's unexpected kindness wrapping around her like a blanket, Amelia let herself stop. She unlaced her boots and lay down on the bed, pulling the quilt up to her chin. Outside, she could hear the sounds of Leadville settling in for the night, voices raised in argument, piano music from another saloon, the rumble of ore wagons heading to the stamp mills that ran day and night. She was asleep before the church bell struck 9. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the window and someone was knocking on her door. Amelia sat up quickly, her heart racing with the instinct of 6 weeks on the run, then remembered where she was. "Just a moment," she called out. She smoothed her hair and her dress, wishing she had something clean to wear, wishing she looked like anything other than what she was, a desperate woman with no prospects. But wishing changed nothing, so she opened the door. Sam stood in the hallway holding a tray with eggs, bacon, toast, and coffee. "I thought you might be hungry." "I am always hungry these days." She stepped back to let him in. He set the tray on the small table by the window. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in weeks." She sat down and began eating, trying to maintain some semblance of manners despite her hunger. The eggs were cooked perfectly, the bacon crispy, the toast still warm. "This is too much. I cannot keep accepting your charity." "It is not charity, it is basic human decency." Sam leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. "I have been thinking about your situation." Amelia's stomach clenched. Here it came, the price for his kindness. Men always wanted something, and "You need work and a place to stay, I need help." She looked up from her plate, suspicious. "What kind of help?" "The legitimate kind. I own this saloon and the boarding house next door. I also have a ranch about 5 miles outside town. The woman who has been cooking for my ranch hands just left to marry a minor, and I need someone to take her place. The work is hard, but the pay is fair, $30 a month plus room and board. You would have your own cabin, private and secure. The men know better than to bother you. $30 a month." It was more than she had made in St. Louis, working 12-hour days in a laundry. "Why would you offer this to me? You do not know anything about me." "I know you are desperate and trying to survive. I know you are willing to work hard. That is enough." He paused. "And I know what it is like to have nowhere to go." Amelia set down her fork. "What do you want in return, really?" "For you to cook 3 meals a day and keep the bunkhouse clean. Nothing else." His eyes met hers, steady and honest. "I am not that kind of man, Amelia. What happened to my sister taught me how men treat women in trouble. I swore I would never be one of them." She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. But trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. "And when the baby comes, we will figure it out. You can take time to recover, and we will find someone to help with the baby while you work. Or maybe by then you will have saved enough to move on, start fresh somewhere else. And if I want to stay, then you stay." Sam pushed off from the wall. "Take the day to think about it. Rest, get your strength back. If you decide you want the job, I will take you out to the ranch tomorrow." After he left, Amelia finished her breakfast and moved to the window. Leadville spread out below her, a sprawling collection of wooden buildings and canvas tents clinging to the mountainside. The town had exploded almost overnight after silver was discovered in 1877, growing from a dying gold camp to one of the richest mining districts in the world. Thousands of men had poured in, all chasing the same dream of striking it rich. But Amelia was not chasing riches. She was chasing safety, stability, a chance to bring her baby into the world without fear. And somehow, against all odds, she might have found it. She spent the day resting and thinking. She washed her dress and herself using the pitcher and basin, scrubbing away weeks of accumulated dirt and exhaustion. She brushed her hair until it shone, the dark auburn catching the light. She was only 23 years old, but she felt decades older, worn down by Thomas's cruelty and the hard journey west. That evening, Sam brought her dinner: roast beef, potatoes, and carrots. He sat with her while she ate, telling her about the ranch, about the 6 men who worked for him running cattle in the high country, about the work that would be expected of her. "I will not lie to you," he said. "It is hard work. The altitude makes everything harder, and winter comes early at this elevation. We get snow in September and it does not melt until May. If you take this job, you need to be prepared for that." "I have been through worse than winter," Amelia said quietly. Sam nodded. "I imagine you have. But you also need to think about the baby. The ranch is 5 miles from town, which means you are 5 miles from a doctor. Is there a midwife?" "There is a woman in town, Mrs. Brennan. She has delivered most of the babies born in Leadville. I can arrange for her to come out to the ranch when your time comes." Amelia thought about this, thought about being 5 miles from help if something went wrong, thought about being alone in a cabin with 6 strange men nearby, thought about winter coming and being trapped by snow. Then she thought about the alternative: continuing to run with no money, no plan, no hope. "I want the job," she said. Relief flashed across Sam's face, so quick she almost missed it. "Good. We will leave after breakfast tomorrow. Can you ride?" "Not well, but I can manage." "We will take the wagon. It will be easier on you and the baby." That night, Amelia lay in bed running her hands over her swollen belly, feeling the baby's movements under her palms. "We are going to be okay," she whispered. "I promise. We are going to be okay." She woke before dawn to the sound of ore wagons rumbling past on the street below. She dressed carefully in her still damp dress, the only one she owned, and braided her hair. When Sam knocked, she was ready. The wagon was loaded with supplies from the general store: flour, sugar, coffee, dried beans, salt pork. Sam helped her onto the bench seat, his hand gentle and firm under her elbow, and then climbed up beside her. He took up the reins and clicked his tongue, and the 2 draft horses leaned into their harnesses. They left Leadville heading south, the road climbing higher into the mountains. The morning was cold, the sun just beginning to touch the peaks to the east, turning them gold and pink. Amelia pulled her shawl tighter and watched the landscape change around her. This was different from any place she had ever known. The mountains rose stark and bare above the tree line, and the air was so clear it hurt to breathe. Aspens blazed gold against the dark green of the pines, and the sky was a blue so intense it seemed artificial. It was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way. "Your first time in the mountains?" Sam asked. "Yes. In St. Louis, the highest point is a hill by the river. It takes getting used to." "The altitude, I mean. You will find yourself out of breath doing simple things, but your body adjusts eventually." They rode in silence for a while, the wagon creaking and the horses' hooves striking stone. Finally, Amelia asked, "How long have you been in Colorado?" 3 years. "I came out from Texas after my sister died. I could not stay there, not with the memories. I drifted for a while, worked cattle drives, tried my hand at mining. Then I got lucky, bought a stake in a silver claim that actually paid out. Used the money to buy the ranch and the saloon." "Do you miss Texas?" "Sometimes, but this is home now." He glanced at her. "What about you? Do you miss St. Louis?" "No." The word came out harder than she intended. "There is nothing there for me now." Sam did not push, and Amelia was grateful. She was not ready to talk about Thomas. about the marriage that had started with such hope and ended with bruises and fear. Maybe she would never be ready. The ranch appeared as they crested a ridge, a collection of buildings nestled in a valley with a creek running through it. There was a main house, a barn, a bunkhouse, and several smaller cabins. Cattle grazed on the slopes beyond, brown and white dots against the gold of the autumn grass. "It is beautiful," Amelia said. "It is home." Sam drove the wagon down into the valley and pulled up in front of one of the small cabins. "This will be yours." He helped her down and led her inside. The cabin was small but well built, with a wood stove, a bed, a table, and 2 chairs and shelves on the wall. The floor was wood instead of dirt, and the windows had real glass. "It is more than I expected," Amelia admitted. "The last cook made some improvements. She said if she was going to live out here, she wanted it comfortable." Sam set her small bundle of belongings on the table. "Take some time to settle in. I will introduce you to the men at dinner." After he left, Amelia explored her new home. She found blankets in a chest at the foot of the bed, dishes on the shelves, a lantern with oil, everything she needed to start over. She was arranging her few possessions when she heard horses approaching. Looking out the window, she saw 4 men riding in, clearly coming from working cattle in the high country. They were dusty and tired, but they rode with the easy confidence of men who knew their business. She watched as they unsaddled their horses and turned them out in the corral. Then, Sam emerged from the main house and spoke to them, gesturing toward her cabin. All 4 men looked in her direction, and Amelia instinctively stepped back from the window. That evening, she made her way to the bunkhouse kitchen, a separate building behind the main bunkhouse where the men slept. It was well equipped with a large stove, plenty of pots and pans, and a table that could seat 8. Someone had left instructions for her sourdough starter in a crock, beans already soaking, salt pork in the cold room. Amelia tied on the apron she found hanging by the door and got to work. Cooking for ranch hands was different from cooking for a family, she discovered. The quantities were larger, the food simpler and heartier. But she knew how to make biscuits and fry salt pork, how to cook beans until they were tender and season them so they tasted like more than just survival. By the time the men filed in for dinner, she had food on the table: beans, pork, biscuits, and dried apple pie made from supplies she found in the pantry. The men were a varied group. There was Jack, the oldest, with gray in his beard and a kind face. Miguel, who spoke English with a Spanish accent and smiled when he thanked her. The Miller brothers, twins who looked barely 20 and seemed shy around her. And a man named Frank who did not meet her eyes. Sam made the introductions and made it clear what was expected. "Amelia is our cook and she is under my protection. She is to be treated with respect at all times. Anyone who forgets that answers to me. Understood?" The men all nodded, even Frank, though Amelia noticed he looked resentful. "Good. Now eat before it gets cold." The men fell on the food like they had not eaten in days. Amelia watched from her place by the stove, pleased by their enthusiasm if not by their table manners. When they started on seconds, she knew she had passed some kind of test. After dinner, while the men returned to the bunkhouse, Sam helped her clean up. "You do not have to do that," she protested. "I do not mind. Besides, it gives us a chance to talk." He dried a plate and set it on the shelf. "The men seem to like your cooking." The men would like anything that did not involve them cooking for themselves. Sam laughed, and the sound surprised her. She had not heard him laugh before. It was a good sound, warm and genuine. "Fair enough. But still, you did well. I think this is going to work out." Over the next few weeks, Amelia settled into a routine. She woke before dawn to start breakfast for the men: hot cakes, bacon, coffee strong enough to strip paint. She packed lunches for them to take up into the high country where they were bringing the cattle down before winter. She spent her afternoons preparing dinner and doing the washing and cleaning that came with cooking for 7 hungry men. It was hard work, made harder by her growing belly and the thin air, but it was honest work, and at the end of each day she could return to her cabin knowing she had earned her keep. Sam was always nearby, checking on her without hovering, helping when she needed it without making her feel incapable. He chopped wood for her stove, carried water from the creek when the buckets were too heavy for her, fixed the door that stuck. Small kindnesses that added up to something larger. They fell into a habit of talking after dinner while she cleaned the kitchen. Sam would tell her about the ranch, about the cattle business, about his plans for the winter. Amelia found herself sharing small pieces of her own story, her childhood in St. Louis, her father who had died when she was 16, her mother who remarried and moved to California. She did not talk about Thomas. Not yet. Maybe not ever. October gave way to November and the weather turned colder. Snow fell one night, melting by midday but leaving the peaks white and the mornings crystalline with frost. Amelia felt the baby pressing lower, the movements becoming less frequent but stronger. She was 8 months along now, moving more slowly, tiring more easily, Sam noticed. He started helping with the heavy work, lifting the big pots, kneading bread dough, hauling supplies from the cold room. The men pitched in too, taking on tasks without being asked. Even Frank, who had kept his distance at first, began leaving wildflowers on the kitchen table. One evening in mid-November, after the men had gone to the bunkhouse and the kitchen was clean, Sam said, "I sent word to Mrs. Brennan. She said to let her know when your time comes and she will ride out." Amelia felt her throat tighten. "Thank you. I have been worried about that." "No need to worry, we will take care of you." Sam hesitated, then said, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "The baby's father, you said he was dead. Was he your husband?" Amelia was quiet for a long moment. Finally she said, "Yes, Thomas Harper. We married 2 years ago. He worked at a bank in St. Louis. Everyone thought he was such a good man, so respectable." She took a breath. "He was not good. He was cruel and violent, and I stayed longer than I should have because I did not know where else to go. When I got pregnant, it got worse. He said the baby was not his, that I had been with other men. It was not true, but he believed what he wanted to believe." "Did he hurt you?" Sam's voice was very quiet. "Yes, often." She pulled up her sleeve, showing him the faint scars on her forearm where Thomas had grabbed her hard enough to break the skin. "I knew if I stayed, he would eventually kill me and the baby. So one night I took what money I could find and left. I do not know if he is looking for me. I do not know if he cares enough to look, but I could not stay." Sam was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "I am glad you left, and I promise you if he ever finds you here, he will have to go through me." Amelia looked at him, this man who had shown her more kindness in 2 months than her husband had shown her in 2 years. "Why are you doing this, really? I know you said it was because of your sister, but there has to be more to it." "There is." Sam met her eyes. "I lost someone I loved because I was not there when she needed me. I swore I would never let that happen again. And then you walked into that saloon and I saw Emily all over again, alone, afraid, desperate. I could not save her, but I could help you. I had to help you." "I am not your sister," Amelia said gently. "I know. But you are someone who needed help and I was in a position to give it. That is enough." But it was not enough, Amelia realized. Somewhere along the way it had become more than just helping a woman in need. She had started to care about Sam, to look forward to their evening conversations, to notice the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. She had started to feel safe, and more than safe, she had started to feel like maybe, someday, she could be happy again. The realization terrified her. That night, lying in bed with her hands on her belly, Amelia forced herself to be honest. She was falling for Sam Hayes. Despite her best efforts to keep her heart guarded, despite all her reasons for never trusting a man again, she was falling, and she did not know what to do about it. The baby kicked hard, as if to say stop overthinking and just feel. Maybe the baby was right. The first real snow came in late November, a storm that dumped 2 feet on the ranch and made the road to Leadville impassable for 3 days. Amelia watched from her cabin window as Sam and the men brought the horses into the barn and secured everything that might blow away. The world turned white and silent, and for the first time since leaving St. Louis, Amelia felt truly isolated, but she was not alone. Sam checked on her every few hours, making sure her stove had wood, that she had everything she needed. The men took turns breaking trail between the buildings, keeping pathways clear. And when the storm finally passed, they all gathered in the kitchen for a celebratory dinner: venison stew and fresh bread and dried apple pie. To making it through the first storm, Jack said, raising his coffee cup. To our cook, who kept us fed, Miguel added. They all drank, and Amelia felt warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the stove. She was part of something here, part of a community. After months of running and hiding, she had found a place where she belonged. December arrived with clear, cold days and nights that dropped below zero. The cattle had all been brought down from the high country and were sheltered in the valleys closer to the ranch. The men's work shifted to repairing equipment, cutting wood, and the endless task of feeding and caring for livestock in winter conditions. Amelia was 9 months along now, moving slowly, her back aching constantly. The baby had dropped, pressing so low she could barely walk. Mrs. Brennan had ridden out twice to check on her, pronouncing her healthy but warning that the baby could come any day. "Have you thought about names?" Sam asked one evening. They were in her cabin instead of the kitchen, Sam having insisted she needed to rest instead of standing for hours cooking and cleaning. "A few. For a girl, maybe Rose. For a boy, I am not sure. Maybe James, after my father. Those are good names." Sam was sitting in one of the chairs by the stove, his long legs stretched out, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him. "Can I ask you something? Always. What will you do after the baby comes? Will you stay, or will you want to move on?" Amelia's heart beat faster. "Do you want me to stay?" "Yes." The word was simple, direct, honest. "I want you to stay, not just because you are a good cook, but because—" He trailed off, seeming to struggle for words. "Because I have gotten used to having you here, because I like talking to you. Because the ranch feels more like a home with you in it." "Sam, I know the timing is terrible," he said quickly. "You are about to have a baby and you have been through hell with your husband. The last thing you need is another man complicating your life. But I had to be honest with you. I have feelings for you, Amelia, strong feelings. And if you want me to keep them to myself and just be your employer, I will do that. But if there is any chance that someday you might feel the same way, I will wait as long as it takes." Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. "I do feel the same way. I have been trying not to because I am scared and I do not trust easily anymore. But I care about you, Sam. More than I should, probably." Sam stood and crossed to her, kneeling beside her chair so they were eye level. "You can trust me. I will never hurt you the way he did. I will never raise my hand to you or speak to you with cruelty. I will never make you afraid. I swear it on everything I hold sacred. I know." And she did know, with a certainty that went bone deep. Sam Hayes was nothing like Thomas Harper. He was kind where Thomas had been cruel, gentle where Thomas had been violent, honest where Thomas had been duplicitous. "I trust you, It terrifies me, but I trust you." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "Then we will figure this out together, one day at a time. No pressure, no expectations. Just together." "Together," Amelia agreed, and the word felt like a promise. The baby came 3 days later in the early hours of a December morning when the stars were still bright overhead and the world was frozen silent. Amelia woke to cramping pain that took her breath away, and she knew immediately that this was it. She managed to light the lantern and make it to the door. "Sam," she called out into the darkness. "Sam, I need you." He was there within minutes, pulling on his coat as he ran from the main house. "Is it time?" "Yes. The pain started about 20 minutes ago." "I will get Miguel to ride for Mrs. Brennan. You get back inside where it is warm." The next few hours were a blur of pain and fear and Sam's steady presence. He stayed with her even when she told him he did not have to, holding her hand through the contractions, wiping her face with a cool cloth, murmuring reassurances. Mrs. Brennan arrived as the sun was rising, a capable woman in her 50s who took one look at Amelia and started issuing orders. Sam was banished to the main house to boil water and wait. The men, who had been hovering anxiously around the cabin, were sent to do their regular work. "First babies take their time," Mrs. Brennan said. "This one is no different. You just focus on breathing and letting your body do what it knows how to do." Amelia tried, but the pain was unlike anything she had experienced. It came in waves, each one stronger than the last, until she thought she might break under the weight of it. She screamed, she cried, she begged for it to be over. And through it all, Mrs. Brennan was there, coaching her, encouraging her, telling her she was doing fine. It was mid-afternoon when the baby finally came, sliding into the world with a lusty cry that made Amelia sob with relief and joy. "A boy," Mrs. Brennan announced, placing the squirming, bloody bundle on Amelia's chest. "A fine, healthy boy." Amelia looked down at her son, at his wrinkled red face and dark hair, his tiny fists waving in the air, his eyes squeezed shut against the bright world. "Hello, James," she whispered. "Hello, my sweet boy." After Mrs. Brennan had cleaned them both up and made sure Amelia was settled, she went to fetch Sam. He came in cautiously, his hat in his hands, his expression uncertain. "Come meet him," Amelia said. Sam approached the bed and looked down at the baby in her arms. His expression transformed, softening into something Amelia had never seen before. "He is beautiful. Would you like to hold him? I do not want to hurt him. You will not. Here." She carefully transferred James to Sam's arms, showing him how to support the baby's head. Sam looked down at the tiny infant in his large, calloused hands, and Amelia saw tears in his eyes. "Hello, James," he said softly. "Welcome to the world, little one. You have a hell of a mother, you know that. She crossed half the country to keep you safe. You are a lucky boy." Watching Sam hold her son, Amelia felt something shift inside her. This was what family looked like. Not blood or legal ties, but choice and care and love freely given. Sam had chosen to help her when no one else would. He had given her a place to stay and work to do, and his own steady presence. And now he stood holding her son like he was something precious, like he mattered. "Thank you," Amelia said, "for everything." Sam looked up at her, his eyes bright. "You do not have to thank me." "Yes, I do. You saved us, both of us. You saved yourselves. I just gave you a place to land." Mrs. Brennan stayed for 3 days, making sure Amelia was recovering properly and that the baby was nursing well. She showed Amelia how to care for a newborn, how to recognize signs of illness, how to manage with very little sleep. And when she finally left, riding back to Leadville through fresh snow, Amelia felt both grateful for her help and terrified to be on her own. But she was not on her own. Sam was there every day, helping with whatever needed doing. He brought her meals, washed her laundry, chopped extra wood for her stove. The ranch hands took turns stopping by with small gifts: a carved wooden rattle from Jack, a soft blanket from Miguel, wild berries preserved in sugar from the Miller brothers. Winter deepened. Snow piled high around the ranch buildings, and the road to Leadville became impassable for weeks at a time. Amelia settled into the rhythm of caring for a newborn, the endless cycle of nursing and changing and soothing. The way time became measured in 2-hour increments between feedings, the exhaustion that went deeper than anything she had known. But there were moments of pure joy too. James's first smile, which came early one morning when she was singing to him. The way he would quiet when she held him against her chest, his ear pressed to her heartbeat. The feeling of his small hand wrapping around her finger, gripping with surprising strength. Sam was a constant presence. He started spending his evenings in her cabin, sitting by the stove while she rocked James to sleep, talking about everything and nothing. He was patient with the baby's crying, helpful when Amelia needed an extra pair of hands, and unfailingly gentle with both of them. "Do you ever regret taking us in?" Amelia asked one night. James was asleep in the cradle Sam had made, and they were sitting together in the quiet. "Never, not for a single moment." Sam looked at her, his dark eyes serious. "These past few months have been the best of my life. Having you here, getting to know you, being part of James's arrival, it has given me something I did not know I was missing." "What is that?" "Purpose, family, home." He paused. "Love." Amelia's breath caught. "Sam, I love you, Amelia. I have loved you since that first night when you refused to give up, when you kept fighting even when you had every reason to quit. I love your strength and your courage and the way you sing to James when you think no one is listening. I love everything about you, and I am not asking you to say it back. I just needed you to know." Tears ran down Amelia's face. "I love you too. I have been afraid to say it, afraid to believe it could be real, but it is real. I love you, Sam Hayes." He crossed the small space between them and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Then marry me. Not today, not tomorrow, but when you are ready. Marry me and let me be a father to James and a husband to you. Let me give you the family you deserve." "Yes." The word came out as a whisper, then stronger. "Yes, I will marry you." Sam pulled her into his arms, careful not to wake the baby, and kissed her. It was gentle and sweet and full of promise. It was nothing like the kisses Thomas had demanded, which had been about possession and control. This was about partnership and respect and love. When they finally pulled apart, Sam said, "We will do this right. I will court you properly, and when you are ready, we will have a proper wedding. I want everyone to know that you are choosing this, choosing me." "I am choosing you," Amelia said. "I already have." They courted through the long winter months. Sam brought her small gifts: a book of poetry from Leadville, a music box that played a waltz, ribbons for her hair. He read to her in the evenings while she nursed James. He taught her to play chess, setting up the board on her small table and laughing when she beat him 3 games in a row. They talked about everything: their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Sam told her about growing up on a ranch in Texas, about learning to ride before he could walk, about the guilt he carried over Emily's death. Amelia told him about her father's printing shop, about how she had loved the smell of ink and paper, about her mother's disappointment when she married Thomas. "She said I could do better," Amelia remembered. "She said there was something off about him, but I did not listen. I thought I knew better. You were young and he was charming. That is not your fault, I know, but I still wish I had listened. If you had, you would not have James, and you would not be here. That is true." Amelia looked at her son, sleeping peacefully in his cradle. "I cannot regret the path that brought me here, even the hard parts." As winter gave way to spring, The snow began to melt and the ranch came back to life. The cattle were turned out onto the greening slopes, and the men began preparing for calving season. Amelia returned to her duties as cook, with James in a sling on her chest or sleeping in a basket nearby while she worked. She and Sam set a wedding date for May, when the wildflowers would be in bloom and the road to Leadville would be passable for guests. Sam rode into town and arranged for the minister to come out to the ranch. Amelia used part of her wages to order fabric from the general store and sewed herself a simple blue dress for the occasion. The ranch hands were excited about the wedding. Jack offered to play his fiddle, and Miguel said his wife would make a cake. The Miller brothers built a dance floor in front of the barn, and Frank strung lanterns between the buildings. "You do not have to do all this," Amelia told them, overwhelmed by their enthusiasm. "Of course we do," Jack said. "You have been taking care of us all winter. It is time we took care of you." The day before the wedding, a stranger rode up to the ranch. Amelia was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard horses approaching. She looked out the window and froze. Thomas Harper sat on a rented horse, looking dusty and angry and determined. Terror flooded through her. He had found her. After all these months, after all these miles, he had found her. "Amelia," he shouted. "I know you are here. Come out." Sam emerged from the barn, the ranch hands behind him. "Can I help you? I am looking for my wife, Amelia Harper. I was told she is working here." "Who told you that?" Sam's voice was calm, but Amelia could see the tension in his shoulders. "Someone in town. I have been looking for her for months. She ran off with my child and my money, and I want both back." Amelia clutched James to her chest, her mind racing. She could run, but where? She could hide, but for how long? She could fight, but Thomas was stronger, or she could face him. She walked out of the kitchen, her chin held high, her son in her arms. "I am here." Thomas's expression twisted. "There you are. Get over here. We are leaving." "No." "What did you say?" "I said no. I am not going anywhere with you." Thomas dismounted and took a step toward her. Sam moved to block his path. "That is far enough. Get out of my way. She is my wife. She is a woman who has made it clear she does not want to go with you. That makes this a matter between her and you, and she has already given her answer." "This is none of your business," Thomas snarled. "I am making it my business." Sam stood his ground, and the ranch hands moved to flank him. 5 men standing between Amelia and her husband. 5 men willing to protect her without question. Thomas looked at them, his face flushing with anger and frustration. "You cannot keep her here." "She is my wife. I have rights." "You gave up any rights when you raised your hand to her." Sam's voice was cold. "Now you need to leave. This is private property and you are not welcome." "I will go to the law. They will make her come back." "The law says a woman has the right to leave a man who beats her. It also says a man who follows his wife across state lines to harass her can be charged with assault. Do you really want to test that?" Thomas looked at Amelia, his eyes full of rage. "You turned him against me. You poisoned him with your lies." "They are not lies," Amelia said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Everyone here knows what you did. They see the scars, they know the truth, and I will never go back to you. Never." "That is my child," Thomas said, pointing at James. "This is my son. You wanted nothing to do with him. You said he was not yours, that I had been unfaithful. You cannot claim him now just because it suits you. I will take you to court. I will prove you are an unfit mother. Try it." Sam's voice was hard. "But know that if you do, I will bring every person in this town who has heard you speak against your wife and child. I will bring the bartender who heard you say the baby was not yours. I will bring the doctor who treated Amelia's injuries. And I will bring 6 ranch hands who will testify to the fact that she has been nothing but a devoted mother since the moment he was born." Thomas looked at the wall of men facing him and seemed to realize he had lost. His shoulders sagged. "You have ruined my reputation. Everyone knows my wife ran away. How am I supposed to show my face at the bank?" "That is not my problem," Amelia said. "You should have thought about that before you hit me." Thomas mounted his horse, his movements jerky with anger. "You will regret this." "The only thing I regret is marrying you in the first place." He rode away without another word, disappearing down the road toward Leadville. Amelia watched him go, feeling a weight lift from her chest. He had found her, and she had stood her ground. She had not run, had not hidden, had not let fear control her, and Sam and the men had stood with her, protecting her without hesitation. "Are you all right?" Sam asked, moving to her side. "I am better than all right." Amelia looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "I am free." That night after James was asleep, Sam and Amelia sat together in her cabin. "What if he comes back?" she asked. "He will not. Men like him only fight when they think they can win. He knows he cannot win here. How can you be sure?" "Because I meant what I said. If he comes back, I will destroy him. I will use every resource I have to make sure he can never hurt you again." Amelia believed him. She had learned to recognize the difference between empty threats and solemn promises, and Sam Hayes did not make promises he could not keep. "Thank you," she said, "for standing up for me, for protecting us. Always." Sam took her hand. "Tomorrow we get married, and then he will have no legal claim on you at all. You will be my wife, and James will be my son. And anyone who tries to hurt you will have to go through me." The wedding took place on a perfect May afternoon, with wildflowers blooming in the meadows and the aspens beginning to leaf out in bright green. The minister came from Leadville along with Mrs. Brennan and a dozen other townspeople who had befriended Amelia during her time in Colorado. Amelia wore her blue dress and carried a bouquet of columbines that Miguel's wife had picked that morning. James, now 5 months old, was passed among the guests, gurgling happily at all the attention. Sam wore his best suit, his hair slicked back, his expression serious as he waited for Amelia to walk to him across the yard. When she did, taking his hand as the minister began to speak, she felt the last of her fear and doubt fall away. This was right. This was real. This was the life she was meant to have. They exchanged vows under the wide Colorado sky, promising to love and honor each other, to stand together through whatever challenges came their way. And when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Sam kissed her with a tenderness that made the guests cheer. The celebration lasted well into the night. There was food and music and dancing, with Jack's fiddle keeping everyone on their feet. Amelia danced with Sam, with the ranch hands, with James in her arms as Sam guided them both around the makeshift dance floor. "Are you happy?" Sam asked as they swayed together under the lanterns. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Amelia admitted. 6 months ago I was running for my life with nowhere to go. Now I have a home, a family, a husband who loves me. It feels like a dream." "It is not a dream. This is your life now, our life." "Our life," Amelia repeated, and the words felt like a benediction. That night, after the guests had gone home and the ranch hands had retired to the bunkhouse, Sam and Amelia stood together in the doorway of her cabin, their cabin now, as Sam had moved his belongings in that morning. "Are you nervous?" he asked. "A little." Amelia had been with Thomas, but that had been different, something required rather than desired, something taken rather than shared. This would be her choice, her want, her desire. "We will go at your pace," Sam promised. "If you need to stop, we stop. No questions, no pressure." They moved inside, and Sam built up the fire while Amelia checked on James. The baby was sleeping soundly in his cradle, unaware that everything had changed, that the man watching over him now would be the only father he would ever know. Sam took Amelia's hand and led her to the bed. He was gentle and patient, taking his time, making sure she felt safe and cherished. And when they finally came together, it was nothing like her experiences with Thomas. This was about connection and love, about two people choosing each other completely. Afterward, they lay together in the darkness, Amelia's head on Sam's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I never knew it could be like that," she whispered. "Like what?" "Tender, loving. Something I wanted instead of something I endured." Sam pulled her closer. "It will always be that way with us. I promise." The years that followed were filled with hard work and simple joys. Amelia continued cooking for the ranch hands while raising James, who grew into a sturdy, curious boy with his mother's auburn hair and a smile that lit up the room. Sam formally adopted him when James was 2, giving him the Hayes name and all the rights and privileges that came with it. When James was 3, Amelia gave birth to a daughter they named Caroline. She had Sam's dark eyes and her mother's determination, and from the moment she could walk, she followed her older brother everywhere. 2 years later came another son, Matthew, who was quiet where James was boisterous, thoughtful where Caroline was impulsive. And then, when Amelia thought they were done, came twin girls Emma and Sarah, who arrived early one April morning and proceeded to turn the household upside down with their matching mischief. The ranch prospered. Sam expanded the herd and bought more land, building the Hayes Ranch into one of the most successful in Colorado. He hired more men to help with the work, and Amelia trained several young women to help with the cooking and cleaning as the operation grew. But despite their success, despite the fine house Sam built to replace the cabin they had started in, despite the respect they earned in Leadville and beyond, they never forgot where they had started. They took in strays, people with nowhere else to go, people who needed a chance to start over. Some stayed for a season, some for years, and some became permanent fixtures on the ranch. Jack stayed until he died at 78, still playing his fiddle at the dances they held twice a year. Miguel brought his family from Mexico and built a house on the far side of the valley. The Miller brothers both married local girls and stayed on as foremen. Even Frank, who had been so standoffish at first, became like family, the favorite uncle who spoiled all the children shamelessly. James grew up strong and capable, learning the ranching business from Sam and eventually taking over much of the daily operations. He married a schoolteacher from Leadville and gave Amelia and Sam their first grandchildren, a boy and a girl, who loved visiting the ranch and hearing stories about their grandmother's arrival in Colorado all those years ago. Caroline became a doctor, one of the first women to attend medical school in Colorado. She opened a practice in Leadville and dedicated herself to helping women and children, carrying on the tradition of care that had saved her mother's life. Matthew became a lawyer, using his skills to help people who could not afford representation, remembering that his mother had once been desperate and alone with nowhere to turn. Emma and Sarah were inseparable all their lives. They opened a dress shop in Leadville that became famous throughout the region for the quality of their work and their fair prices. Through it all, Sam and Amelia remained devoted to each other and to the family they had built. They weathered droughts and harsh winters, economic downturns and personal losses. When Thomas Harper died in St. Louis alone and unmourned, according to the brief notice in the newspaper, Amelia felt nothing but relief that he could never again threaten what she had built. On their 30th wedding anniversary, Sam took Amelia back to the cabin where they had first lived. It was still standing, kept in good repair by sentiment more than necessity. They walked inside, their children and grandchildren waiting at the main house for the celebration to come. "Do you remember that first night?" Sam asked. "When I carried you up those stairs in the saloon and you did not know if you could trust me?" I remember everything. Amelia looked around the small space that had once been her entire world. I remember being so scared and so grateful and so confused about why you were helping me. I helped you because I could not do anything else, because you needed help and I had help to give, but I never expected to fall in love with you. That was a gift I did not see coming. The best gift. Amelia took his hands, looking at the man he had become, silver in his hair now, lines on his face from years in the sun, but the same kind eyes, the same gentle strength. You saved my life, Sam Hayes. You and this ranch and this family, you gave me a reason to stop running and start living. You saved mine too. Before you came, I was just going through the motions. I had money and land and respect, but I did not have purpose. You gave me that. You and James and all the children, you made me understand what I was working for. They stood together in the cabin as the sun set over the mountains. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built something lasting. Outside, they could hear their family gathering, children calling, grandchildren laughing, the sound of happiness that comes from being loved and safe. We should go, Sam said. They will be waiting in a minute. Amelia pulled him close, kissing him the way she had on their wedding day with love and gratitude and joy. I just want to remember this moment, us here where it all started. We will have plenty more moments, Sam promised. We have years left, you and I. And they did. They grew old together on the ranch they had built, surrounded by family and friends. They saw their grandchildren grow and marry and have children of their own. They celebrated 50 years of marriage, and then 60, and the whole town of Leadville turned out for the party. When Sam finally passed at 83, it was peacefully in his sleep, Amelia's hand in his. She mourned him deeply, as did everyone who had known him. But she did not regret a single moment of their life together. Amelia lived 5 more years, long enough to see her great-grandchildren born, long enough to tell her story to anyone who would listen. She wanted young women to know that it was possible to leave bad situations, that there were good men in the world, that starting over was not only possible but sometimes necessary. When she died at 88, surrounded by 4 generations of family, her last words were about Sam. He is waiting for me, she said. I can feel it. He is waiting to take me home. They buried her beside him on a hill overlooking the ranch with a headstone that read, Amelia Hayes, beloved wife, mother, and friend. She was lost, but she found her way home. And every year on the anniversary of the day, she walked into that saloon in Leadville, 7 months pregnant, desperate. And alone the family gathered at the ranch to remember. They told stories about the grandmother who had been brave enough to run, who had been strong enough to trust, who had been wise enough to recognize love when it found her. They talked about the grandfather who had cleared a room for her without being asked, who had given her a place to land, who had loved her for 58 years. The ranch continued to thrive, passed down through the generations, each one adding their own chapter to the story. But they never forgot the foundation it was built on: one woman's desperate flight to safety, one man's act of unexpected kindness, and the love that grew between them in a small cabin in the Colorado mountains. The cabin itself was preserved as a reminder. Great-great-grandchildren played in it, imagining what it must have been like when their family story began there. Couples sometimes asked to spend their wedding nights there, wanting to sleep where Sam and Amelia had started their married life. And every person who walked through that door could feel it, the echo of love and hope and second chances, because that was what the Hayes Ranch represented. Not just cattle and land and prosperity, but the idea that it was never too late to start over, that kindness could change lives, that love could heal even the deepest wounds. It stood as a testament to two people who had found each other when they needed it most, who had built something lasting from the ashes of despair, who had proved that happy endings were possible even for those who had lost all hope. And on quiet evenings, when the wind came down from the mountains and the aspens whispered their secrets, people swore they could sometimes see two figures walking hand in hand across the meadow, a tall man and a woman with auburn hair, together still in death as they had been in life, their love story written into the very bones of the land they had claimed as home.